Born at sea, raised on radio, and now back on the high seas. John, welcome back to Out of the Main.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Well, let's see how well you can hit your high seas. Ready? Go for it. Not very good. Thankfully, we have some professionals on board today.
Yep.
Both of whom could probably hit high C above C. We'll find. We're not going to challenge them to it, but we want to welcome back onto the podcast Kevin and Erin of the Docksiders. Guys, welcome back.
Hi, guys.
Hi there. Thanks for having us back.
It's been a couple of years, or it's been a minute, as the cool kids would say on the internet.
Erin is very happy to be back.
Last time we were, you were in or hailed from Milwaukee. Now you hail from Vegas, huh?
We have planted anchor. Sorry, the pun.
I think it's dropped anchor, though, if you're going to say it.
Right?
Yeah.
But the ships run into a barge
already
in the desert.
You let us handle the puns.
All right.
There we go. Done deal.
So I just wanted, what's so cool about this, it's so good to see you again, sort of in person, but I was thinking back to the first time I did see you in person, which was a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago. John and I are at a concert at this beautiful outdoor waterfront venue, watching what has become my favorite yacht rock tribute band. I believe they are America's favorite yacht rock tribute band. And not long after that, you're on this podcast and you're talking about heading out to Vegas, which we'll get an update on. And now here we are a couple years later, and the two of you are collaborating with my co-host and brother here on a new record. So let's start right maybe at the end and work our way backwards. The album is currently out. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it would have been a dream project if I didn't have such a demanding co-producer in John Nixon. It was he made the project just almost unbearable at times. With
Is that why it's called The Timeless Journey?
Only a producer would have. Do you know what I'm talking about as brother Tom?
Yeah, well, you called it The Timeless Journey. I would have called it The Endless Trudge, but close enough. Yeah.
Good. So good. No, honestly, it was a dream project. Working with John was just it's so funny because we met you guys 3 years ago, like you said, and quite honestly, we knew of the Out of the Main podcast, and obviously we're very grateful that you're having us back a second time now, and we were like, didn't know you guys personally and didn't know truly your feelings about purity in yacht rock. And we are, we've talked about this before, we are rooted in yacht rock, but because we have this incredible singer and my wife in the band, and the reality of there not being tons of female yacht rock songs, we've had to get creative in ways to pull in some more soft rock hits of those eras. And we have found that our audiences just want to feel good and be happy. And that's what this music does to us musicians and students of this music from that era. But to the people that this was the soundtrack of their lives to, this just really is healing. It's therapeutic. And we feel that, by doing that, it allows us to kind of touch more people, not just the yacht rock pure fans. So when we met you guys, we were really pleasantly surprised into how open you were to the genre was interpretive, right? Like there is a lot of interpretation to what we now know as yacht rock. Now, some might argue with me and say, no, Kevin, it's very defined and you're just being a bit more open with your interpretation. But I agree. I think both sides are right. And when we met you and found how wonderful you guys were with how inclusive you were with the music that we chose to do, and how meeting you after that first show, and I just really remember how positive you felt about the show, and it really meant a lot to me personally, and I know the rest of the band felt the same way. And then getting to know you and John over just coming back to the Ford House where we played the second year. And then listening to the Page 99 stuff and all the cool music that is coming out of your neck of the woods, when, I'd always had an idea to do an album. And I don't know if I shared this on the last conversation, But we have a Docksiders album that is in the can that has never been released. And we recorded it during the pandemic, and it just never saw the light of day. It just didn't feel like it was the right time to be putting music out when everybody in the world was sitting at home, writing songs about disease and being, putting music out in a pandemic. Didn't feel like the right, subject matter to be putting out sort of happy, feel good, melodic music with. So when I listened to that music, I just had this instinct, and I reached out to John and I said, "Hey, I think we're going to do a Docksiders album. How would you like to kind of split the production duties?" And we could and I think we found a really natural way of, John had his lane, I had my lane. It was both very collaborative on both sides of that, and we were very communicative about where we were on certain songs, and he would go into his studio and create tracks, and then I would get them, and then we would talk about another song, and then he'd go back and work on others, and then I'd get them, and we'd start adding vocals and guitars and saxophones, and it was just a really I'm sorry I'm rambling, but I'm so happy about.
Take a breath.
I am really. This was a very pleasurable project for me, and I've made some records in my life, as I know you guys have too. So I think people will hear the joy that we had making it when listening to it. I really think it translates that way.
Yeah, it was interesting to do because, like you said, you had your lane, I had mine. So it meant I didn't have to be stressed about the stuff that's tedious to me, which is recording vocals. And you didn't have to stress about how do I start these songs from the ground up. That was, for me to do. But one of the more interesting parts of that, which I think will probably be bouncing around a little bit, but the song selection process was an interesting thing because it kind of came in waves. But at one point, because I wanted to bring Erin in on this, I don't think you mentioned how great of a singer she is, but not many people are willing to take on Streisand. I can't think of a lot of people that are willing to cover Streisand. So I know you kind of forced this on her, Kevin, but I want to hear Erin's take on what was it like to go in and say, okay, I've agreed to cover Streisand. Here we go. Take one and hit it. What was going through your head?
What's crazy is I didn't really think about trying to make something that was hers. I wanted to I loved the song and I just wanted to sing it. And I didn't think about people are going to compare this to Barbara. I really didn't think about it because if I had, I think it would have been even harder for me to sing it. Because it was, it's a high song. It's really, it's up there and it's got a lot of power behind it. So I just really, I looked at him because he had wanted to do it a certain day. And I was like, I didn't get enough sleep last night. I know it's going to affect my performance. You're going to have to give me another day. And he was like, oh, okay, fine. But then, I got in and I said, okay, I think I'm vocally ready for it because it's a very, it's a strong song that has a huge range. It's not just, it's quiet and then it's very powerful and then it's
very dynamic.
Yeah, that's the word, dynamic. Thank you.
That's okay. I'm here for you. I love it.
I gotta tell you,
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, as a listener, it comes across as near effortless, and I know it's not effortless, but it's a testament to your technique and your ability. Listener Mead, who is a friend to the podcast, posted on Facebook something to the effect of, if you are going to take on Babs, you better bring your A game. And I'm here to tell you, you brought your A game, Erin. And I'm also hearing shadows of another one of your mentors, Olivia Newton-John, in your approach to that same song.
It's crazy because that's kind of always the way I have sung. And I didn't recognize it as being similar to Olivia until people started saying it. I've always had that sort of, when I met him, we talked about my singing style, and I had this ability to be very quiet and kind of whispery, or
airy, very breathy,
and he always tried to pull that out of me because I loved it, and I didn't realize how much there's a similarity to Olivia there. But
and then, you know, by no fault of her own, when you start throwing Olivia songs in the set and you listen to her do Olivia, it's like, holy God. Like, I don't remember who else, but somebody just recently said nobody does Olivia like Erin Suker. Somebody on our social media. And I totally agree. Like, I can close my eyes nightly on stage and it's like amazing. I don't know if I shared this with you, but I worked with Olivia at one point in time, and I played her a version of Erin singing Magic. And she was so sweet. She said, honey, I have heard a lot of people sing my music. Your wife is very special.
Yes.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Talk through, you guys, if you don't mind. So as John initially told me that he was going to pursue this project with you, he said, we want to cover some artists from the yacht rock era, or within or without. It doesn't really matter that much, but it was to try to find what we call the buried treasures. Now, obviously, Woman in Love was a hit, but what was the approach to finding and selecting the songs that you were going to cover for this album?
If I'm mistaken, please correct me, but Tom, you were part of the playlist that you and John both put together for me to start.
None of my songs made the cut, though.
Are you serious? None of them?
I don't.
They're all
so.
Pearl Jam songs.
Yeah.
Album's not closed yet. We can still release something next week.
Okay, good. I got some thoughts.
No, you know, you guys put this incredible playlist together, and I remember it was kind of probably the longest period before we actually got started. It took me, I went on tour. It was on repeat last summer, and we started the album about a year ago. I looked back at like the original, the first song we did was Making Love, which is towards the back end of the album. But I looked at the original recording dates. It was in May of 2023. So I remember spending no, it wasn't. It was later than that. Now that I'm thinking about it, the timeline was, we started the music selection around this time, and we didn't record, I don't think, until we got back in like June or July of that year.
Yeah, it was later,
but I
right?
stayed through July-ish listening to those tracks, and it was hard. It was, I think finding that first song kind of sets the tone.
It did.
Stylistically where we're hoping to go.
Well, because it allowed us to figure out that we were going to do something that wasn't exactly yacht rock. We were going to go sort of not adjacent, but a tangent to it, I guess you might say, because there was a lot of synth bass and drum machine and stuff in that song. It was much more of a mid 80s to even later 80s sound. But from my perspective, it allowed me to pull out all my toys. But it also got me to figure out, okay, how far is he willing to go outside of playing it safe as an organic yacht rock band? And that one gave us our parameters, because we knew we could do the safe stuff, but I wanted to do something synthy like that, and it was a hit.
For people who don't know it or haven't heard it yet, who is the original artist that you're covering, Making Love?
Finis Henderson.
Finis Henderson.
Is off the same album as the Blame It on the Night?
Yep.
Yeah. Cool.
82, correct?
I think that's right. Yeah. It's right in the yacht rock pocket, or the yacht pocket. Along the way, I heard stories that there were some very interesting external forces that came into play in terms of hearing what you were doing and maybe having an influence on the direction you might take it. Names like Tony Orlando.
Yeah. So Tony is, I love Tony Orlando. He's the reason we're in Las Vegas. He has been so instrumental in the Docksiders day to day for the last, I don't know, 2-3 years now. He's now retired from performing after 64 years in show business. And he just said to me a couple days ago, let me get a little relaxation, and then I'm going to be managing you. So I couldn't be more excited than to have the legend that is Tony Orlando and be present in our lives, more so personally than professionally. He is, there's nobody that I've ever met in the music business that is as amazing as this man. Over $200 million raised with Yellow Ribbon for veterans and veteran causes since it came out in 1973. The man is literally an angel on earth, and he leads with love and it has really taught me a lot, and I only hope that I can follow in his footsteps someday, helping others out the way that he has helped the Docksiders. That is one of my biggest dreams. But Tony, I was sending him some of the rough mixes as we were doing some stuff, and he sent me a text message with an MP3 attached to it with the David Pack song, "I Just Can't Let Go." Now, David and Tony are very, very dear friends.
Oh, okay.
And he actually said, he's like, "You and Erin should do this as a duet." Now, for those listeners of yours that don't know, Tony Orlando was the head of publishing for Columbia Records back in the early 70s for Clive Davis. Tony signed Barry Manilow. Tony signed James Taylor. Tony was instrumental in, the songs are escaping me, but the songs that he placed with artists that are iconic classic songs are mind-blowing. And Tony, using his ears and instinct, coming to me saying, "You guys need to do this song," was like, okay, we're gonna do it. Like, it's a no-brainer. And I didn't know how I felt about the duet until I sat down with Erin and we looked at the lyrics and we said, okay, this would be your verse and this could be my verse, and then we can split the bridge section in two, and it really it lends itself beautifully, I think, to the message of what the lyric is as a duet. Tony, after it was recorded, kept insisting I reach out to David Pack, and I have not met the man. I've been a huge fan. One of Erin's favorite voices on the planet, mine as well.
Yeah.
And he sent me David's phone number, and he said, please. He probably asked me like 3 or 4 times. I was like, I'm gonna some annoying idiot that's just saying, "Here's
cold call him."
What do you think? And he just said, no, he's gonna want to hear it. He's like, it's really good. Like, please send it to him and tell him that I told you to reach out. So I did. I sent it to him, and I got an absolutely beautiful text back where he was unbelievably complimentary. He said, "Congratulations to everybody that played on the record, and congratulations, the singers are great." And then he wrote a second comment after that one that said, "Your wife has an amazingly beautiful voice. Wow." And I was like,
oh,
co-signing, like, that is,
I agree with that one too. Yeah,
boy.
And you were on it as well, right? Like, it's what it is.
That's
beautiful.
It was unbelievable.
And I have to be honest. I've been very fortunate to meet Steve Lukather, and I know him.
Yeah,
he's in a little band called Toto.
I've heard of them.
And
yes. Now, when you say it, it rings a bell.
I sent him our version of "I'll Be Over You," and he immediately wrote me an email back saying, "Oh," he said, "Kev,
and you never told me this until now. Come on."
Great. What was that?
You never told me this until now. Come on.
I'm so sorry. So, like, there was one day last week.
Happened.
There was one day last week. We were, as we all do in life, we go through peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
It happened to be a little bit of a depressing day. There were some things that went on that didn't really go the way that we had hoped. But I looked at Erin at the end of the night, and I was like, "You ready for this? I've talked today to Tony Orlando, David Pack, and Steve Lukather."
That sounds like a full day to me. I don't care what else.
Right? Wake me up. Like, really? Is this really amazing? So it feels amazing. I'm just very grateful. Like, I'm grateful to have met you both. I'm grateful for the work that John put in, and you, Tom, and helping select these songs. And Erin, even though I kind of, every time we'd get on the phone and I'd be like, I got to kind of give my wife like 6 days of advance notice when I want to get her in the studio.
Yeah.
Listen, when and nobody would know this unless I said it. She sang "Woman in Love" twice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the whole second take that is on the record.
Oh, wow.
There's no comp in that at all. That is that. And I have been a part of some really cool recording sessions where a singer steps behind a microphone, and it's very infrequent that a singer can sing a song from top to tails straight through without having to stop or fix or rephrasing, or the timing might be a little off, or the emotion, then you kind of look to try to like create emotional connection between take 1 and take 5, or take,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You can make a comp that doesn't sound like it's schizophrenic from a performance standpoint. So when you can get a singer that has an instrument like that, that really kind of digs in, and I think specifically about Woman in Love, we had done that song once. It was our second show that we had ever played as the Docksiders in 2018. There weren't a lot of people. We were still trying to figure out what we were going to be. We weren't dressed as the Docksiders even at that point in time. We were dressed, like band black, trying to figure out how to be a yacht rock thing, and how are we we didn't want to wear all captains outfits, and we didn't want to do the kind of the kitschy shticky thing. No, like we do the shticky thing with sequins and the glitter, but I think that's what makes Las Vegas, and it was a natural thing from that perspective. But when she did Woman in Love that night in this room, there probably was 30 people there. When I mean to tell you, they wouldn't let us start the next song for an abnormal amount of time. It was 30 people that would not stop screaming. And I said to her, I'm like, we have to figure out how to somehow, that song's got to have some.
And that was a half step higher than how we did it too.
It was
live without a net.
Yep.
I had to touch on one more song while we're talking about song selection. I don't know that we're obviously going to go through all of them, but it was an interesting story because after we had done the first few songs, Making Love in particular, kind of, as I said, sort of set a tone, at least in my mind. In my list and in the back of my mind, I had put a song and I kept kind of pushing it to the top to see if I would get a reaction. Never got a reaction. Finally, we're near the end. We're still searching for songs. And you reach out to me and say, what about let's hear it for the boy? And I had been wanting to do that one in the back of my mind, as I said, for months. Lo and behold, obviously I say yes. And then you tell me, well, there's an actual interesting story behind that relates directly to Erin. So Erin, tell us that backstory.
Well, what's funny is there had been a different song that was picked for me, and it didn't resonate with me.
Do you remember the name of the song that we were going to record? I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
I know.
But it was on the doc.
Yes, it was from JP Morgan. It was I can't think of the title now, but a JP Morgan tune from that.
That Can't Hide Love.
It was. I had the stems. I had the tracks.
Keeping it to myself.
I had the session. That's exactly. Yeah. And every time I would say, "Hey, we're going to record that song," she would be like,
She was worried she was going to get gonged.
I just listened to it and I didn't feel it, and it just like I didn't love it, and I kept going, okay, this is going to be one of those, like, I have to trudge through it. And then he said to me,
honestly, I got a little frustrated.
He did. And rightfully so.
And we were trying to finish the album, and we were like one song away from being done with her. And I just went, we're just going to pick another song, because clearly you're not into it and you don't want to record it. So I'm not going to push you anymore.
So then he started going through the songs, and then it must have been like, he must have realized subconsciously that you had picked this one before, because he played it. And I was like, he's like,
well, I went back to the list, and I think that's where it hit me that she had a connection to the song.
Yeah.
I
think we were worried it wasn't yachty enough. It was too far off.
Right.
But there was a tie-in.
This was a song that my mom would hold my little brother, sing to him, and dance around the living room. And it has this very like happy childhood memory song for me. So when he said it, I was like, yes, that's the one. This is the one we're going to do.
Beautiful. Amazing. Well, speaking of being a child and interesting song selections, so I am the proud flannel wearing ripped jeans grunger in the crowd, and John one day tells me, oh yeah, Kevin talked to Butch Vig the other day, and Butch Vig had an opinion about it. I'm like, what?
Dave Grohl's related to the story too.
Explain this one. And for people who don't know who Butch Vig is, just explain real quickly who Butch Vig is. For people
Butch Vig is the Jedi master of 90s rock, right?
He's like alternative rock, yeah.
I mean, Nirvana, Nevermind,
Smashing Pumpkins.
Garbage is his band.
Yeah. He's in the band Garbage. But Butch had a recording studio in Madison, Wisconsin, which was about 80 miles from us in Milwaukee. And I used to work in and out of the studio on a couple different projects growing up as a kid. Always wanted to make a record there, and I had done many. And another really amazing thing that someday I should thank Butch for is, my grandparents passed very close to each other, and they were very, very poor. And then my mother was an only child, and they left my mother a very, very small sum of inheritance money. And I was getting ready to go in and make an album at Smart Studios in 1994 when my grandparents had passed. And my mother said, your grandparents would have wanted you to have this to follow your dream. So I said, wow, floored that my mom would think like that. And it meant a lot to me coming from my grandparents. And then I really kind of dug deep, and I thought, well, I can go spend this money at Smart Studios and walk out with a compact disc, or I could go buy a Mackie 32 bus console and a Pro Tools rig, and I can learn how to do this and have the equipment to start doing it whenever I wanted to. And Butch Vig inadvertently put me in the recording studio business. But Butch, I had gotten to know over the last handful of years, more so when I was I was running a non-commercial radio station in Milwaukee during the pandemic. And I'd met him very topically in the day. He didn't want to he was a busy guy. But I asked him to be part of a music community program that we were building in Milwaukee to help bring more attention to the Milwaukee music scene. And I asked Butch to be a mentor to it. And Butch, being just a huge Wisconsin fan, even though he lives in LA now, was absolutely. So we connected. He even, he asked me what I was doing, and I told him about the Docksiders. And he went on one of our YouTube pages, and there's a comment from Butch Vig with the rock hands up after saying the Docksiders rock, which is cool. So we were on social media, and
we were on tour.
And we stumbled upon one of our other yacht rock bands that you guys, I'm sure, know who they are. And Dave Grohl was talking indirectly to them, and he said, "Hey, I'm a huge fan of the AM Gold sound. If I was going to do an Andrew Gold song, I wouldn't do 'Oh What a Lonely Boy.' I would do Never Let Her Slip Away. That's the gem." So, me being me, I was like, we're doing that song. We're doing that song. I don't care if he was talking to another group. We're doing that song. So what I did is I reached out to Butch, actually Clay, our sax player, who's from the Madison area as well, and played in many bands with Butch over years, like grew up, playing music together. Clay sent him the track and said, would you be interested in producing it? I said, can you please ask him if he'll produce it? And let's see if we could maybe get Dave to guest on the record. And Butch responded immediately. He just didn't feel it was right. Timing didn't feel right. And it didn't dissuade us. Like we still went ahead, and I think we killed that. And Danny Williams, our Docksider that sang it, it's one of my favorite performances on our record.
Yeah, it's fantastic. John, do you have? I have my final question is about the final track, but I want to put a pin in that. So,
well, that's kind of where I was headed. So go ahead, because I know the story. So you go ahead.
Okay. Well, yeah. So John says that there's a story behind the final track, because I've listened to the album nonstop since it came out. By the way, it is available for streaming and download. Vinyl to come, which we'll ask you about. But I hear the song at the end, and I'm like, it sounds familiar, but I can't place this tune. But it's buried at the back of the record. It is a gem. It's going to be my buried treasure for this episode. Tell us the story about "Wish You Were Mine."
"Wish You Were Mine" is why Erin and I are sitting here in Las Vegas. It was Thanksgiving night, 2019, right before the pandemic. Happened in February or March of 2020. I got an email at 3 a.m, and the email said something like, "I'm the oldest living hit songwriter in the world with hits in over 10 countries. Google me. I'd love to talk to you. Here's my number."
Oh, wow.
I wake up the day after Thanksgiving, and it's signed L. Russell Brown. And the name was very familiar. I couldn't at that moment place where I knew L. Russell Brown from. But when I hit Google, he wrote Tie Yellow Ribbon Around the Old Oak Tree. He wrote Knock 3 Times. He wrote Come On Marianne for Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. He was Bob Crew's protege back in the day in the Brill Building, was writing with Carole King and just Simon and Garfunkel. He was writing with all the greats. And I was floored because Yellow Ribbon meant so much to me personally. I told the story once before that I remember visiting my grandparents on Long Island when I was really young. In the summers, I would go spend some time with them. And Yellow Ribbon on that silver label that said Bell Records, and it had L. Russell Brown and Irwin Levine on the bottom of it. Yep. I would play it so much, and we have a 9-year-old. We know what that repetitive over and over again songs in the house go. You know, it's a legit thing. I must have been playing it 50 to 100 times a day, no joke. And I remember my grandpa saying, "You're going to wear my needle out." I didn't even know what a needle was or why that was a big deal because I was just listening to music. But when I called him the next day, I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm honored." And he said, "We heard a version that you did of an Andy Gibb song that you posted on YouTube. I went on a deep dive. And here on the right-hand column is the Docksiders, I Just Want to Be Your Everything, which is our most streamed video on YouTube." And he said, "The vocal is great." He was like, "The mix is incredible and the production is better than the original." And to me, I'm going, he might be old, might be getting hard of hearing. I don't know what the deal is. But he said, we talked, and then he said, "I got this song that I wrote for the Bee Gees in '77. Would you like to do it with the Docksiders?" And I said, are you kidding me? I'd be honored to." So he sent me this track. I sent it to John when we brought the song back up again. Yeah. But I started working on it, and quite honestly, if you heard this first album that we were putting together, there's no way the song belonged on that record. Like, the record that we made is kind of like I don't know, it's got like some modern,
like California Dreamin', kind of has
kind of folky and country, but yet it's got some 50s sort of like doo-wop feel, and like it's incredible. And Dan Auerbach of the Black Keys wrote half the songs with Larry Brown, and these are brilliant songs, but it just didn't necessarily at that time feel like it was a Docksiders album. And Erin, there's 2 tracks on this record that nobody's heard that Erin, I mean, you've heard her sing on the record. You've heard that there are equally impressive songs on this record as well. But like I said, "Do you have a song for a female? I can't really figure this Wish You Were Mine track out." And he said, "Yeah, I happen to have a song I wrote for Patsy Cline that she didn't record." And that one I was the beginning of that project. And when we got to the end of this record, it really felt important to me to pay a tribute to Larry Brown. Larry's the one who introduced me to Tony Orlando. And Larry is, at 81 years old, Larry got on a plane and he came out for our last opening here. And I love it. He is sweet an amazing. And he and I went to Nashville where he lives with his wife a couple years ago. And we had a writing session. We wrote 4 songs. One of them belongs, one of them is a smash. I mean, Larry will say that's the best song that he's ever written. And we'll see. Maybe someday that'll be placed somewhere with someone and it becomes an iconic track that would be amazing. It was an honor to write with him. And it's just been an honor to get to know him. And I literally sent it to John. I said, "It's kind of quirky. It's got some measures of 6/4, and then it goes to 4/4, but it feels like it like skips to me. It doesn't really feel like a pop song necessarily would in that era."
For the Bee Gees.
Right.
Yeah, he had written it for the Bee Gees, and since the Bee Gees were writing their own stuff, they were like, "Thank you, but no." So it just sat.
Yeah. But I got to be real. John, like 4 hours later, sent me a quick little snapshot of
I just chopped it up, and cut out the
his
stuff.
vision of where it could go, and it was like, no brainer, dude. Like,
it was a puzzle to figure out, but once we figured it out, then the song just kind of flowed easily from there.
Yep.
Well, I got to tell you guys, you are probably the hardest working couple in show business these days. You're like Tony Orlando and Dawn from 1977.
All in one.
Yeah, yeah.
We got to be
So-
honest. We went and saw Springsteen a couple years ago and watched he and his wife up there, and I looked at her. I said, I think we could take the two of them.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Although the
probably.
boss is in great shape.
It is
He's-
really, yeah.
he's
Ladder
up there
match.
playing for 4
I wanna
hours
see
a night.
that.
Well,
Yeah.
what's what else is going on? So we'll before we let you go, we want to make sure everyone knows what is going on. Tell us about the vinyl release. Tell us about what's happening in Vegas these days and what you got coming up this summer.
So CDs are in production right now. We should have those hopefully soon. Vinyl takes 3 months from what I've learned. I've never done vinyl before for a project of my own. Back when I was making music and releasing CDs in the 90s, vinyl was it was gone. Nobody was
Right.
printing vinyl. And from what I've learned now, ours are being made in Europe. There's shipping to get it back to the States, and there's shipping to get it to me. I was
Right.
told 3 months if we're lucky. So we're just staying in touch with the people that have been supporting. We have an Indiegogo campaign that's running for another 2 weeks. We are looking just for help to pay for the hard costs of making. You got to do a separate master for vinyl. You got to do a separate master for the streaming. The artwork that we had created costs real money. The CD and the lacquer and the vinyl pressing costs real money. You guys know there's hard expenses. There's other expenses that we put our sweat equity in, obviously, and we're not looking to make any profit on that. We're just looking to try to see if we don't have to go into debt any further.
But summer is
put out
coming,
the-
and so you get out there, you get your tour going, you start shaking hands and kissing babies, and you'll sell them, right there on the spot. That's the idea, right?
That's the hope, right? And then we're gonna have to drag them to the live shows, right? They'll be with us whenever we play. Unfortunately, we're not going to have them we'll have CDs for the summer this year,
Right.
but we're not going to have the vinyl at that point. Las Vegas, we are so excited. We moved here 2 years ago, August. We opened at the Rio, quickly learned that was not the spot for the Docksiders. We played for 8 weeks there and then moved in March of 23 to a place on Fremont Street. Quickly learned that was not the place for us as well. And we had always dreamt of being on the Strip. That was the hope of kind of coming to Vegas to have a really big show on the Las Vegas Strip. And a handful of weeks ago in February, there was a producer who was building a room a year and a half in the making, and he had read an article that was praising the Docksiders in Las Vegas. For whatever reason, we have really been embraced by the entertainment community and the people here in Las Vegas. We are we're very grateful for that. And he read this incredible article, came to our show at a room that was just kind of like, we did it to play, really. We didn't
Right.
we didn't, it wasn't like a plan to do any more. And Tony and his wife and daughter were at the show. I walked them to their car. I walked Erin out, and I walked back in, and this journalist introduced me to this producer who said, "I'm building a room. I want the Docksiders to be my headliner. It's in the Venetian." And I went. It was so hard for me I had to pull on all of my poker skills.
Interesting proposition.
Yes.
I was like, just the Venetian. I don't know if I like the Venetian. Probably not the right people. But I mean, come on. It is, in my opinion, it's the premier property on the Las Vegas Strip. It's the right age and the right demographic. It's not catering to, just Californians that are coming in for weekenders. It's the place to be. And we celebrated for all of 6.5 minutes because then the fear set in of holy cow, we got to really put people in the seats now, because if we don't, we're not going to be playing there long.
Oh, yeah.
The hopes are, that the yacht rock phenomenon has touched enough people that age group realizes they don't have to go out and spend $500 to go to the Sphere to be entertained. They can be equally entertained by coming into a 350 seat showroom at the Venetian for a fraction of that price and leave feeling just as good and have more money to lose at the tables.
There you
That's
go.
right. Yes, yes.
There you go.
Well, it
Well,
was certainly an exciting project to be a part of. We'll see. I'd love to do another one, but even if we don't, this was, totally in my wheelhouse. I want to thank you for. He told the story real quick at the beginning that he sent me this nice text outlining. No, you didn't. You sent me a text said, "Hey, dude, let's make a record," and then you just left me. That's how it started. But I texted you back right away, and I said, "Yeah, let's talk." So anyway, I had to correct the storyline there. Tom, go ahead.
well, I'm used to.
He did tell me that this was the easiest project that he
It was.
had. The best project that he has worked on.
It had its challenges. I'm not going to say it didn't. Like we didn't have.
I've been working with him.
Working with John, working with a co-producer was great. Like you can be in a co-production relationship, and sometimes it's like egos get in the way and ideas get in the way, and I need to be heard. You're not listening to none of that. None of that. This was so beautiful, and I remember you even calling me and saying, "Dude, you let me kind of do what I wanted to do," and I was like, "I didn't let you do anything. You're co-producing." The way I perceive this is we're doing this together. I'm a firm believer of letting talented people do what they do. I've done that in all of my successful collaborative and creative relationships. I find that the contrary, when you're in a room and somebody's inserting muscle into the situation, people tend to kind of like grudgingly, and they tense up, and you don't get the best out of people. And I really felt in my gut that we were going to make something that hopefully, first and foremost, that the people would hear, that it would find ears, right? Like that, for whatever reason, that there's just not a lot of new music that people can find because there's just too much saturation of people throwing songs up every single day. So like, how do you hear it? So it's things like the yacht rock groups on social media. I didn't expect anybody to make it a Monday track of the day. And to see that, it's like, and it hasn't happened a ton, but it's happened enough. And Mead is an incredible example of that, and how celebratory he is on the music and that group on Facebook. And you guys might want to share that information, but like, it's things like that hopefully will prolong people being aware of what it is that we spent a lot of time and heart and soul creating. I would love to make another record, and I've like my 5 records I made as an artist in the 90s, I made them literally, I was writing for the next record as the new record was coming out. Like I was already into the next process, because and what I didn't realize is I was training myself for this current state of technology that we're in, where you have to be releasing things all the time. So we're looking for reels and little snippets and little photos and lyric videos and music videos. Like none of that stuff really makes a ton of sense to me anymore. Like music videos, does anybody really want to look at my old bald head running around in a music video? I don't think so.
I asked myself that very question.
There you go.
That's why I wore a hat to this.
My resolution has been no, but don't let that be your guide. Well, it's been an amazing journey. The Timeless Journey is now out. It's really been great getting to know you guys. I know John just got to know you a little bit better, but it's been fun listening to you, watching you live, seeing the progress, and we wish you nothing but continued success. Keep making the music that we all love, and we'll keep listening and downloading and buying.
Thank you. That'd be fun. Docksiders album 2 due next summer.
Oh, there you go. All right, we better let you go so you can get on it.
Produced by Butch Vig. Bye.
All right.
All right, guys. Thank you, and come back soon. Next time there's something to talk about, we'll find an excuse to have you on.
Yepers.
Thank you.
You bet.